Well, hey guys and gals, how you doing? It's me, George, the Shade Tree Fix-It Man. And yes, sirree, Bob, we're gonna do what I think I said I was gonna do last night. But look at this first thing right off the bat. We have our roll bar in place, and we have our head cushion, or whatever you want to call that, neck rest. It's just zip tied on there for the moment, but that's going to go up there. I believe I get a little trimming to do on it, and I'll tell you about that when I get there. We're going to start at the front, just like I said I was going to do. And let's see, the first thing we're going to do is these wheels. I'm trying to remember what these wheels came off of. I know the tires I bought at an online auction. I bought the pair of them. I think I paid $15 for the pair. And these babies are just about brand new. They still got the little nipples on them. They've been run a little bit, but they haven't been worn off yet. And these are highway rated tires. So yeah, the wheels. Where did the wheels come from? Oh, I know. These wheels came off of a snowblower. In fact, if my memory serves me correctly, these wheels came off the snowblower that, let me see, he goes by the name of Dave's Cage, but he's also Firebirdable. Yes, he gave me this this snowblower minus the motor that I actually drove up near the cities, and we met up there and we made a video of it and had a great time meeting one another. So that's where those came from. The spindles themselves, they came off of there too. And the well, I should say the hubs came off of there. The spindles are 5/8 bolts, grade 8 5/8 bolts. As you can see, this is slid out a little bit. They're welded onto my homemade, boy, am I going to have a hard time figuring all this out today. These are my homemade spindle brackets anyway that go onto my axle, and you can see they're all drilled out. And these came from some parts that I had. I think what those came off of, and I'm pretty sure that those parts came out of the dump. Those parts came off of one of these. See that right there? Yeah, see all of those holes? Yes, sirree, Bob. That's a garage door opener connection bracket. And we got another one over there to open that bracket. Open that door over there. Yepper. That's what it came from. And of course, we took all the paint off them and everything. And this piece here is welded on here. That is my steering arm for because this is the steering side. And let me see, this piece here is from some metal I got at the dump, as is the axle. The front axle was a piece of tubing I got out of the dump when we were still allowed to pick from the metal bin. Not so much anymore. But the front axle is totally homemade. And the reason you see a welding in the middle there is I made it too wide initially, and I ended up narrowing it, I think about 2 inches, as I recall. So this is all homemade stuff. This is homemade in here, and this is homemade in here. And these pieces here are just some piece of channel iron, and I drilled them out. It's got a pin in there that is welded to this washer for the kingpin. And let me see, the front steering tie rod These tie rod ends on both sides came off of a lawn tractor that was given to me that I ended up junking. But I stripped it for parts, and the tie rod itself is made of electrical conduit, and the little bungs right there, right here, that is welded inside there, this is threaded. These are actually 3 nuts that were welded together, and then before I had a lathe, I chucked them up on a bolt and I turned them in my drill press, and I turned them with a taper on them so they slide inside of the tubing. And you can see I just have it tacked on there right now. But I got those 2 tie rod ends, and the tie rod end here and down here on my drag link from the same source. And you can get an idea again of those little bungs, and of course it's made so it can be adjustable. And this part here, the pitman arm itself, is made out of a similar piece of metal. And then we come back here. Oh, wait a minute, I almost forgot. We have our vintage wrench that says made in the USA. Yes, sirree, Bob. And before I get going further back, let's look at the spring. I started to show you the spring mount. Let me take this down from here. This spring is literally a buggy spring off of an old buckboard wagon. And the original one was elliptical. This is semi-elliptical here, because when I say elliptical, it means it went not only this way across the top, but also went the same thing underneath. And there were 2 leaves on the top, 2 leaves on the bottom. And I was just going to use the 2 leaves at first, but found out they weren't quite stiff enough. So now we have all 4 leaves on there. And the pieces that are on the end are pieces of tubing, and I have Teflon or nylon bushings inside of them, and I welded them back onto the axle. I cut the original ones off. They were pretty worn out. Put these on, and I put them on top, which makes them like a reversed eye. And then we have these shackles. These shackles are actually some that were given to me by the Heavy Chevy family, Mr. and Mrs. Heavy Chevy, and 2 Miss Heavy Chevys, and 1 little Mr. Chevy, Mr. Heavy Chevy. So yeah, that's where those came from. And then we move down to our brackets here, our radius rod brackets. And those are just pieces of scrap metal that I picked up. And you can see how they all hook together down in here, all welded up. And some of it's just tacked together, needs final cleanup, you know. I even made the spring perch bolts. You can see it there on that side. And then let me zoom it over here. And you can see it on the outside. Another piece of tubing, same, and has the nylon inserts in it for bushings. So yeah, that's all custom made. And then the shock absorbers. The shock absorbers came off of a stair-stepping kind of exercise unit. And I bought one at the thrift store. I think it was Goodwill. I think I paid $12 for the first one. And all I wanted out of it was the shock absorbers. They're just the right length and everything. And I ended up buying a second pair. And the second pair I got at a yard sale, and I paid $2 for those. So yeah. And then our spring perch here, this is all custom made out of flat steel. And yep, you can see how that works down in there. A lot of cleanup needed, been sitting for a long time since I fabricated it. And then we come back here to our shock absorber perches. These are vintage Model A wrenches. Yep. Vintage Model A wrenches. And let me go over the other side. It might even say Ford on the other. Okay, now you're going to have to look carefully because the Ford is actually on the inside of these wrenches. But you look over in there, see that? Ford script. Yes, sirree, Bob. So those are from the 30s. Model A. Yep. Okay. And continuing with our front suspension, that brings us back here to our split wishbones. And those are some tubing that I got out of the dump. And we welded these pieces here in the front. This has bushings in there. And then it comes back here, and I made some bungs to go on this end. Sorry for the shaky cam. Hold on a second here. You can see where I welded those in. They need to be cleaned up a little bit more. And that's because we have nuts that are welded in there so that these tie rod ends are actually threaded right in to our split wishbone. Okay? And these tie rod ends, there's a story behind them. The first pair that I got, and the ones on the front and the ones on the back are identical. The first pair I got for free because my son had bought a pair to use on his Dodge Caravan when he was going to repair the, what do you call it now? Come on, somebody help me out. Yeah, I'll think of it and I'll put it up there. But anyway, the front steering on it, you know, I know what it is. It's just totally escaped me at the moment. But anyway, ended up that his unit was beyond repair, so we ended up buying a good used one from the junkyard, and it was going to cost too much to send these back, so he gave me this pair. And I found out I was actually going to, let me stand up here now. I was actually going to buy some tie rod ends, you know, similar to these. These are little dinky ones here. And we'll talk about those in a minute. But I was going to buy some of those to use on my drag link and radius rod and so forth. And I found out that it was actually cheaper to buy a pair of these brand new off of eBay than it was to buy little small dinky lawnmower ones like that. Now those are real dinky ones, but same style. So I think the back pair cost me $15 for the pair. How cool is that? And it was going to cost me 12 bucks a piece for the lawnmower tie rod ends. So okay, so that takes care of our front suspension.